Hello there, it's Daily Dose of Anime Recaps again, and today we have a manga recommendation for you called The Tutorial Tower of the Advanced Player. This manga falls under the genres of dungeon, action, and comedy. The story revolves around the main character, Hyun Woo, a genius who conquered dungeons with his lightning-fast kicks and lethal strikes. Before making a name for himself in the outside world, he spent 12 years trapped in a tutorial tower, unable to log out despite multiple attempts to clear it. However, on the 1350th attempt, on a day filled with frustration, luck finally came his way through a message that read, "You've broken out of the loop. Congratulations. When you finish clearing the tower next, you'll be able to pass." Hyun Woo was granted the chance to live a free life once again. He returned to the real world and embarked on a journey to find the person behind the creation of the tower and the one who imprisoned him for 12 long years. His main objective was to make that person realize they messed with the wrong guy, and he wouldn't easily let go of that grudge. To find out more about the manga storyline and uncover the mystery behind the curse, let's join Hyun Woo in the tutorial tower of the advanced player right away. And a little reminder, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to let us know how much you enjoy it. Not too long ago, a group of monstrous creatures suddenly appeared and started causing destruction worldwide. Reports came in from the Cheonho neighborhood, mentioning a massive tutorial tower that emerged alongside these terrifying creatures. People were easily drawn into the tower, where they had to face tough tests and even resort to killing each other just to survive. Among them, only 20% were able to survive the tower, and they became hunters with special abilities and were the hope of mankind. 12 years later, after clearing the tutorial tower for the first time, the hunters became idolized by the people, and they began to enjoy fame and wealth, almost like successful businessmen. In this new era, the association and the guild began to work together. The camera lens swiftly shifted towards a group of elegantly attired individuals, ready to embark on their work as directed by the filmmaker. Each name was introduced, revealing them to be attractive guild leaders hailing from powerful guilds. They were presently engaged in filming for a show called Hunter Encyclopedia. This show became a popular program that gained over 357% viewership ratings. The female MC held a paper in her hand and read aloud the question that received the most votes from the online community. It was said that there's an advanced player that's living in the tutorial tower in Korea. Who is that advanced player? Upon hearing the question, the invited guild leaders claimed to know who that person was. According to them, he was the very first hunter in the world. But instead of leaving after conquering the tower like others, he chose to go back to the first floor and restart everything repeatedly for the past 12 years. Some members of their teams even claimed to have seen him swiftly clearing all 100 floors in just one day. However, despite having extraordinary strength, it was funny that he wasn't good at using magic. Interestingly, at this very moment, a storm of comments flooded the Hunter Encyclopedia channel, with numerous people sharing their encounters with him and witnessing him effortlessly kicking monsters from the first floor to the 10th floor, as easy as kicking a ball. In a world of advanced technology, the prospective hunters were getting faster at completing the tutorial tower. Since all the tutorial towers worldwide were made of the same contents, whenever a team conquered one, they would share their experiences with others. But even with widespread strategies for attack and defense, only a few people managed to safely leave the tower. Numerous prospective hunters, who had been trained to climb up to the 99th floor, lost their lives at the last door. On the 100th floor, there was a loud explosion, and a terrifying creature with sharp teeth emerged from the smoke. It was called Balrog, the boss of the floor, the owner of the tutorial tower, and the most feared monster in the tower. After the recent battle, Balrog had killed 70 out of the 95 prospective hunters. Just when the weaker ones thought they were doomed, a young man appeared out of nowhere and delivered a powerful kick. After defeating Balrog in front of everyone, he took a deep breath and looked up at the opening portal. This was his 1,349th clear, and the next one would be his 1,350th. Frustrated, he fell to the ground and expressed his desire to go home like everyone else. 12 years ago, Hyun Woo and the others had completed the final floor, expecting to return home, but instead he found himself trapped. He was on the first floor of the tower and learned about a curse from the system board. Naturally, he was angry and took out his frustrations on the monsters he encountered. After repeating the process of clearing stages and strengthening himself for 10 iterations, he believed he could break the curse with determination, but nothing worked. Over a span of 5 years, he tried different methods and even disguising himself as different characters to make friends with prospective hunters. But he couldn't ease his loneliness. 12 long and boring years had passed. Hyun Woo lay on the ground, staring at the system board. All the entries were the same, and he had reached their limits. Suddenly, something changed. You've broken out of the loop. Congratulations! When you finish clearing the tower next, you'll be able to pass. Ecstatic, Hyun Woo laughed and shouted with joy because finally, he could go back home. There were explosions, one after another, as Hyun Woo advanced, shaking everything around him. Floors 70, 80, and 90 were quickly cleared in an instant. The final destination was right in front of him, and the big boss, Balrog, was waiting for him. Hyun Woo shouted, "You're all going to die. I'm going home." Another huge explosion happened at the top of the tower. The recent attack could have brought the whole place down. At the entrance of the tutorial tower in Cheonho neighborhood, Gangdong district, a massive gate suddenly appeared in midair, surprising the office observers in the observation office. They hurriedly sent someone to check the list of the survivors and ask about what was happening. It had been a long time since he stood outside, breathing fresh air, and he couldn't contain his joy as he shouted excitedly. The man from the observation office, upon hearing Hyun Woo introduce himself as Hyun Woo, immediately started searching for information on the list. But even after searching for a while, he couldn't find anything. It wasn't until he read the list of 1st batch of the tutorial that his eyes widened in shock. Hyun Woo, one of the hunters from the first batch who were summoned into the tutorial tower, confirmed to have escaped from the tutorial tower after 12 years. The news of him quickly spread like wildfire. 1 week later, at the Korea Tutorial Center, where the 18 batch of hunters' first rating would be evaluated, a competition was about to begin. Many people gathered, eagerly waiting to see the performance of this legendary expert. In the VIP waiting room of the tutorial center, Hyun Woo's old teammates from 12 years ago were also there, waiting. The girl with long hair spoke up. "If we all gather together again, he'll be the only one who'd remain the same as he was in 2006. Because in the tower, one's appetite and sleep disappears, and your body's growth and aging will stop." The other two nodded in agreement. 12 years had passed, and everyone was excited to see how strong their old friend had become. Chap 4. I'm the A-rank hunter, David, who'll be in charge of overseeing your evaluation. The man in front of the crowd, wearing armor and armed with weapons, began explaining the mission and how to succeed. He took out a phone and pressed the start button, activating a large door behind him. It started shaking vigorously before collapsing, revealing a labyrinth. According to him, the labyrinth was filled with various traps, and the advice was to stay focused and use all abilities to find the way out on the other side. After a 30-second preparation period, the participants rushed forward eagerly. The supervisor seemed pleased with the newbies. While he was praising them, he heard someone calling him. Hyun Woo had been yawning and finally spoke up. "So, you just need me to get to the exit somehow, right?" The supervisor lowered his glasses, wondering who this pathetic kid was. They exchanged a few words, which quickly turned into a bet. Hyun Woo, feeling underestimated, said that if he could get through the labyrinth within 20 seconds, the other person had to give him 1 million won. The supervisor generously offered 10 million won if Hyun Woo could accomplish what he claimed. This suited Hyun Woo just fine. Paying no heed to the rest, he dashed straight towards the labyrinth wall and placed his hand upon it. In a matter of seconds, a series of thunderous explosions erupted. The colossal labyrinth shattered, forming a clear path from one side to the other, leading directly to the exit gate. Everyone present was left stunned and speechless, struggling to comprehend what had just transpired. Meanwhile, Hyun Woo knew he had won 10 million won in the bet. In the past, Lee Kang-hyun always thought he was the star, the main character of this story. During the previous tower challenge, while everyone else ran away from the boss, he bravely fought them alone. He had a big ego and believed he was the strongest hunter in the group. But when he saw Hyun Woo kick the head of the Balrog and escape the tower, he realized he was wrong. Since then, all the attention shifted to Hyun Woo instead of him. Kang-hyun felt tired, jealous, and resentful. Returning to the present moment, the first exam of the evaluation was postponed due to safety issues. Everyone was shocked. Even at the evaluation exam press room, the reporters were in chaos. With the labyrinth exam being postponed, people in the waiting room had the chance to discuss and gossip about the advanced hunters. Meanwhile, the main character slept peacefully, oblivious to the commotion caused by himself. After the preparation time, it was time for the participants to take the retest one by one. Kang-hyun surprised everyone with his special magic skills. He wielded a sharp sword combined with lightning, showing immense strength as he quickly defeated a group of monsters. The countdown timer ended, and it was announced that hunter number 33, Lee Kang-hyun, had defeated a total of 78 creatures. He received praise, but the attention soon shifted to Hyun Woo, as hunter number 34 stepped forward for his exam event Monster Wave. There were many goblins summoned for him to fight. The main task was to defeat as many monsters as possible within 120 seconds. After a quick 10-second preparation, the colossal green-skinned creatures launched their initial attacks. Hyun Woo paused momentarily, swiftly knocking out a daring goblin attempting to block his path. The other goblins rushed in to fight, but unfortunate for them, they had encountered the top-ranked player in the server and became immediate targets for his relentless assault. Someone exclaimed in astonishment, "Does that guy know how to use magic too?" Another person, sharing the same expression, chimed in. Seo Kwon-han was the only team captain who could clearly observe the scene. He explained that Hyun Woo's fighting style was simple. He got close to the monsters and attacked them repeatedly without much planning. The speed of his strikes was so fast that it surpassed the speed of bullet projectiles, giving the impression that their heads were effortlessly severed. Seo Kwon-han had heard rumors about Hyun Woo before, but today he witnessed firsthand that his former teammate had completely transformed into a formidable monster. As the 120 seconds elapsed, the scene was littered with goblin corpses strewn across the ground. Hyun Woo had defeated a total of 248 goblins, an impressive achievement that made him the top trending topic on social media. After reading the news, Lee Kang-hyun couldn't contain his anger and unconsciously crushed his phone, eventually venting his frustration by punching the wall while cursing loudly. He couldn't believe that despite his thorough preparations, he was surpassed by someone seemingly indifferent. During the break, a woman placed a sheet of paper on the table, listing the names of the guilds that wanted to meet Hyun Woo. After handing him a business card, the woman introduced herself as Alice, working for the Korean Hunters Association's Information Division as its chief. She then began to elaborate on the benefits of joining different guilds. Hyun Woo quickly realized that the presented offers were not compelling enough for her to seek him out. The woman was slightly surprised by being exposed, but she maintained a cheerful smile and clarified the purpose of the meeting, to invite him to the Alice Guild. Hyun Woo received the contract she gave him and quickly glanced through it. He hesitated and asked, "Is this the weight of a one-time 10 billion won contract?" Even though Alice confirmed the information, it didn't make Kang Hyun any less worried. At first, he thought the large amount of money was because of the currency depreciation, but that wasn't the case. Alice explained that the 10 billion won was just the signing bonus, and they would pay double the amount of the first contract signing after the expiration of the contract period and renew the contract in the future. This big amount came with the condition that the dungeon spoils from the labyrinth must be shared with the guild. But Alice assured him that the distribution ratio would be much more favorable for him. However, Hyun Woo rejected the offer, saying he preferred to go solo rather than join a guild. Despite Alice's advice, he stuck to his decision. He believed that a good life didn't solely depend on being part of a guild. He had heard about many independent hunters living freely, and that's what he wanted. 5 days later, Hyun Woo was invited to a Japanese restaurant to meet his old teammates. As they enjoyed sushi and shared fun stories from the past, the most amusing one was when he used Seok-won's sword to cut off the monster's tail and tried to make merman tail sashimi from it. The conversation remained cheerful. But when Hyun Woo discovered that their tower exploits had been broadcasted on television, his smile instantly faded. Internally, he felt a mix of shock and embarrassment, pondering whether they had witnessed his nakedness during dungeon clearing or his cosplay as a monster out of boredom. Uncertain about how much others knew, the young man seemed unaware of the specifics, prompting him to ask directly. Hyun Woo didn't deny the silly things he had done and explained to them, "Try getting stuck in there. You can really do whatever you want, and you'll get away with it." Suddenly, he remembered that he still had a disciple. He shared a story about encountering a kid somewhere on the 50th or 60th floor. At that time, he was quite free, so he played around with high-level martial arts training and took the boy as his disciple. But looking back, he felt a bit embarrassed because the teachings he gave were just about using brute strength to defeat monsters without much strategy or thought behind them. Fortunately, he had worn a mask, or else the kid might have given him a beating for being deceived if they were to meet again. The conversation continued in a pleasant manner. After finishing their meal, everyone went their own way, and Hyun Woo returned to the room provided by the Hunter Association. His information window no longer displayed his real age of 36, but remained at 24, just like it was 12 years ago. Curiously, he clicked on the "You have broken out of the loop" section to see what it contained. Surprisingly, it opened a new mission. To proceed to the next step, please clear the 3 dungeon bosses to meet the basic requirements. Dungeon conquest objectives included Adiron Research's lab, Forest Village, Visible Swamp. Just as Hyun Woo was about to explore further, he heard a knock on the door. Thinking it was someone else, it turned out to be the security guard uncle delivering a message that someone from the Heiress Guild was waiting for him. Hyun Woo was about to decline immediately, but when he saw the terrified expression on the security guard's face, he decided to go along on the trip. In the lobby, there were 2 men who looked like thugs. One of them, named Kang Byung-ho from the Human Resources Department, handed Hyun Woo a business card and straightforwardly stated their intention to invite him to the guild. However, instead of being polite, he chose to intimidate by asking directly, "I'm asking if you think you can properly progress as a hunter without joining the Ares Guild." Hyun Woo frowned and replied, "Hey, did you guys crawl all the way here at this hour to just threaten me?" He boldly mentioned what he had heard, that Heiress was a group of people with trashy and nasty personalities. The Heiress Guild was a powerful organization that looked down on others, controlled 66% of the dungeons in Korea, and operated them as a ticket-selling business. Suddenly, the ball guy slammed the table hard, causing it to deform. It seemed like a clear threat, but it was a shame they seemed to have mistaken their target. Hyun Woo fought back against the bullies, kicking his leg up while taking off his slippers and saying, "I guess you guys really are just trash." He then stood up, holding the slippers in his hand and asked, "You guys need to pull yourselves together after getting hit a little. I'll use my slippers to deal with you." The bald guy, thinking it was just a threat from a mischievous kid, angrily approached Hyun Woo to teach him a lesson. But to his surprise, he was hit hard in the face with the shoe, causing him intense pain and making him lose consciousness. The guy flew backward and crashed into the nearby wall. When he looked back, his body had sunk deep into the wall, making it impossible to pull him out. Kang Byung-ho, witnessing the A-rank hunter he brought being defeated in a single blow, he had seen Hyun Woo's abilities during the test, but only regarded him as a frog hiding in the dungeon. He had always believed that sooner or later, the power and strength of the Ares Guild would crush him. Unexpectedly, reality turned out to be different, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. On the opposite side, Hyun Woo approached the remaining person with the broken shoe in his hand and said, "Do you know what I hate the most?" Kang Byung-ho, terrified, took a few steps back, but there was no escape route left. Hyun Woo revealed that what he hated most was being threatened by others, and with determination, he swiftly brought his arm down, determined to send one more person to the heavens. After causing a commotion, Hyun Woo immediately ran to Si Hyun's location to seek refuge. Si Hyun informed him that the members of the Ares Guild were very ruthless. Once they become his enemies, they would exert pressure to prevent him from joining other guilds, or they would secretly eliminate people in the dungeons because it was a dangerous place where no one knew what might happen. Si Hyun was worried that Hyun Woo would encounter trouble, so he tried to persuade him to join his guild but was declined. Hyun Woo still had a few tasks to resolve, so he changed the topic and asked if Si Hyun knew about the Aderon Researchers Lab. He still harbored deep resentment towards those who had unjustly imprisoned him for 12 years, and now he was determined to find them and settle the score. Based on Si Hyun's knowledge, he mentioned that Aderon's research lab was a C-rank dungeon in Uijeongbu. It was a good dungeon for new hunters to practice their skills. The Ares Guild had control over all the dungeons, unfortunately including Aderon's research lab. Hyun Woo was displeased with this information and exclaimed, "How can they do that? What's the government doing? There weren't anti-monopoly laws or something like that." Si Hyun explained that the government and politicians didn't care about hunters since they didn't get them the votes they needed. The police didn't even go near to investigate since the dungeons were so dangerous. They just consider the murders as accidental deaths. Hyun Woo felt frustrated by what he heard. Ares appeared to be more like a business, projecting a positive image while oppressing hunters. He wanted to infiltrate their lab, but was thwarted by the strict guards. One plan failed, and another didn't succeed either. Hyun Woo made up his mind, "I am just going to face them head-on." Whether he intended it or not, engaging in a battle with the other two was akin to declaring war. Hyuk Sun-woo, the Korean brand manager of the Ares Guild, had reviewed Hyun Woo's skills and sent someone to recruit him. He glanced at the human resource manager, Yoo Byung-wook, and inquired if the task had been completed. Upon learning that their approach had not been successful, Sun-woo remarked, "Forget it, we better not hire a guy like him." Observing the human resource manager's confusion, he further explained that recruitment should benefit the guild. Utilizing a skilled hunter like Hyun Woo in dungeons and labyrinths would lead to remarkable achievements and substantial profits. However, for him, Hyun Woo was like a poisoned apple since Hyun Woo desired a higher position and was dissatisfied with his current role. He became a potential threat. Hyuk Sun-woo issued an order to his subordinates to cease recruitment and instead ensure that Hyun Woo sustained moderate injuries. Receiving the command, Byung-wook went outside to carry out the task, but was interrupted by someone who brought news of a major incident at Aderon's research lab. A few moments earlier, Hyun Woo went straight to the research lab, but as Si Hyun had mentioned, the guards wouldn't allow anyone inside without a ticket. With no other option, Hyun Woo bent down and quickly took off his shoes, holding them in his hand. Then he smiled and waved to the guard in front of him to engage in a conversation. The stout guard assumed that the newcomer was just some indifferent or wandering person. Little did he know that as soon as Hyun Woo approached, he received a sudden slap across the face, causing him to fly and crash into the distant fence without uttering a word. Hyun Woo didn't bother to glance at the person he had just struck and continued walking forward. There was still one guard left, and he didn't intend to stop but approached him closely before speaking. "Give me your shoe. Should I open up your eyes like what I did to that guy over there? Goodness gracious, is there a police officer nearby?" The frightened guard hastily took off his shoes, suppressing his fear, and handed them over to Hyun Woo to preserve his life. In return, he received a pair of broken shoes and dared not utter a single word of complaint. Somewhere in C-rank dungeon, the boss Adonron, with a monstrous figure, wielding a surgical knife, roared with a twisted mouth like a deranged killer. "My research materials? Where are my research materials? I can't continue with my research at this rate. I need more samples, more research materials." A few hunters stood at a distance, observing the scene. After obtaining the information, they sat down and discussed among themselves. The sole girl in the group suggested capturing the boss, but considering their abilities, they believed they couldn't accomplish it. Another person spoke up right after contemplating a hypothesis. He had noticed that Adorone had high defense power, but since his attack power was weak, they could just take their time in defeating him. With their minds made up, they rallied their spirits and prepared for the psychological battle. However, despite meticulous planning, as they were getting ready to attack, they discovered another individual standing in the same location. The moment the monster Adorone spotted a human, it smirked and mockingly said, "Where shall I start my research from? Your eyes, heart, or spine? Tell me where you want me to start from. I'll make sure to take good care of it." Hyun Woo, behaving like a gentleman, instead of responding, advised it not to engage in such actions anymore. And without even letting the other party speak another word, he swiftly unleashed a powerful kick, easily defeating the boss right then and there, in front of the eyes filled with disdain of the hunters who had come seeking experience. They noticed him, the sports attire he was wearing, and that powerful kick left no room for doubt. The advanced hunter who won first place on the Hunter Kill Issue bulletin board had truly appeared right before their eyes. On the 5th floor of the Aries Guide Korea branch, the head of human resources hurriedly ran to the management department upon receiving the notification to report to the person in charge there. After reading through the information, the other person's face broke into a wicked smile, praising Hyun Woo as a strong individual. If Hyun Woo had reached this level, he was not just at the peak, but should be considered a monster. The head of human resources said to him, "The brand manager said that we only need to hurt him moderately. But well, it won't be a problem if you just do whatever you want." Woo Chung Mayung, the manager of the Korea Management Department, nodded in understanding. He assured that there was no need to worry about this character, and just let him take care of these trivial matters himself. And also, there was no need for the branch manager to know about this, as he seemed to be extremely busy lately with plans to enter the Chinese market. The newly established guild in China called Tyrant. Although it was first set up 2 years ago, it had been able to monopolize 52% of all dungeons in China. In just 4 years after coming out of the tower, the guild leader grew Tyrant into a giant guild, and every single one of their leaders were known to be monstrously strong. But what was even more surprising was that the guild leader of the Tyrant Guild, who was officially ranked 5th in the S-rank world rankings, remained unidentified to the public. The Aries Guild had to confront such a formidable force, so naturally they couldn't afford to waste too much manpower on dealing with just one person. On Hyun Woo's side, upon returning home, Sai Hyun presented him with a mobile phone for convenient communication. Sai Hyun glanced down at his friend playing with the phone and said that there was currently no boss in the forest village because it had been defeated a few weeks ago. He explained that in tutorial towers, The bosses would normally respawn within a day, but in real-world dungeons, it was different. Regular monsters would respawn even if they were killed, but bosses would require a considerable amount of time to revive. And in the forest village, it would take around a month to encounter that particular boss again. Fortunately, it had been defeated nearly 4 weeks ago, so it was certain that it would reappear in just 2 or 3 more days. As for the visible swamp, Hyun said he wasn't quite sure, but if Hyun Woo wanted to find out more, he recommended registering the Hunters Association, because he needed to have a registered rating in order to get access to amenities that were in partnership with the association. And not only that, it could also lead to earning money. The following day, Hyun Woo wasted no time in taking his aspirations of wealth alongside Hyun as they hurried to the Hunters Association Ability Evaluation Center to register for ratings. The person responsible for registrations was a middle-aged man. Upon hearing the name Kim Hyun Woo, he couldn't help but wonder why so many unrelated people had been coming to seek information about him recently. Although he found it puzzling, he simply thought those people had spare time and didn't pay much attention to it. Returning to his main duty, he informed Hyun Woo that all his personal information had been verified. He then handed him the Eye of the Seeker, explaining that his rank status would appear as a hologram next to it. Hyun Woo eagerly accepted the item, and while waiting for the system to acknowledge his rank, the person responsible for registration silently speculated that Hyun Woo probably didn't possess any magic abilities, likely at the B or B+ level. To his surprise, as soon as the hologram displayed the information, his eyes widened in astonishment, revealing an incredibly awkward expression. And as fate would have it, news about a master who possessed all skills except for magic power at the A level spread like wildfire on hot searches and various media outlets. On the drive back, Hyun expressed concern, mentioning that it seemed like the Ares Guild had gathered all the information about him. If he dared to venture into their territory again, he would encounter significant trouble. Hyun's advice fell on deaf ears as Hyun Woo didn't pay much attention to them, hastily diverting the topic with a different question. "Aren't you busy or something?" Hyun, of course, had things to do. Being the captain of a guild, there were often many tasks to handle. But out of love and fondness for his friend, he reassured him that he had made arrangements to have time to assist him, not to be a burden like in their childhood years. That evening, Hyun led Hyun Woo and a few others to the forest village. Glancing at the time displayed on his phone, he mentioned that the boss would respawn soon, so there was no need to worry excessively. While walking, Hyun Woo suddenly noticed another person behind them. The person was wearing armor and carrying a backpack. His name was Park Jae-mun, and he was there to pick up the loot. Hyun Woo didn't know that the loots from the boss here were valuable and could be sold for a high price. He also didn't know that loots were used to make armor or weapons. Out of the blue, the person following them asked to film their adventure and share it on YouTube. When Hyun Woo realized that they could earn money from it, he wanted to split the profits with Park Jae-mun. After a while, the other person gave Hyun Woo a piece of paper. He looked at it but didn't understand the symbols drawn on it. But when he found out it was a map of the dungeon they were in, he studied it carefully. Suddenly, Hyun Woo discarded the map and decided to continue alone. Eventually, he stood in front of a big old tree. The other two followed him, unaware of what was happening. Hyun Woo turned to the person filming and said, "Take a picture of this." After reminding the person to film, Hyun Woo returned to the tree and prepared to fight. Suddenly, a blue light appeared in Hyun Woo's hand, and it felt like an endless source of energy. When he attacked, the powerful energy burst forward, destroying a part of the ground. In front of Hyun Woo stood a huge blue monster with 2 heads. This monster was the boss, the twin-headed Orge of the forest village. The other two were surprised that Hyun Woo summoned the boss with just one move. Hyun Woo bravely approached the monster, flew up, and kicked it in the head. To their surprise, the monster turned out to be weaker than expected and fell to the ground, looking defeated. After defeating the giant monster, Hyun Woo struck a cool pose on top of it. They celebrated their victory without realizing that the Ares Guild had been observing them. Although Shin Chun Gang praised Hyun Woo, he also underestimated him because he had found a way to deal with him. The next day, Hyun Woo went to the dungeon managed by the Ares Guild. Despite his previous promise to the green-haired girl, Hyun Woo found himself unable to avoid conflict with the members of the Ares Guild. Suddenly, a man wielding a sword appeared in front of Hyun Woo, obstructing his path. This individual's demeanor and actions closely resembled those of the first person Hyun Woo encountered. Still holding his sword, he threatened and then got provoked by Hyun Woo, going crazy and attacking him. After dealing with these obstructions, Hyun Woo proceeded directly into the visible swamp. Standing before a river, Hyun Woo noticed the soft ground beneath his feet, making it difficult to discern the soles of his shoes. As he navigated the terrain, his attention was not drawn to any movements beneath the tranquil surface of the water. Unbeknownst to him, a pair of menacing faces lurked beneath the river, fixating on him as if he were a delectable meal. Suddenly, the monstrous creature emerged before Hyun Woo with a ferocious and threatening demeanor. This formidable foe was the boss of the visible swamp known as Mega Alligator. As Hyun Woo observed the creature, which bore a striking resemblance to a colossal crocodile, he recollected the words of the enchanting green-haired girl. She had enlightened him, saying, "Its leather is tough and hard, and it also possesses magic resistance. It's very expensive, and its teeth as well." The mere mention of wealth brought a joyous expression to Hyun Woo's face. Anticipating the creature's attack, he swiftly took action, determined to strip its skin without delay. Hyun Woo swiftly delivered a forceful kick, momentarily bewildering the creature. Panicked, the monster attempted to flee but was unfortunately too sluggish. Seizing hold of its twin tails, Hyun Woo executed a swift rotation before launching it forcefully into the distance. The creature became enraged from the harassment, transforming into a fierce and threatening state. It exuded an aura of danger and had a chilling breath. It opened its mouth wide and charged straight ahead. Seeing the monster about to swallow him, Hyun Woo prepared to counterattack. But before he could strike, chains tightly bound both of his legs, rendering him unable to move. Seeing Hyun Woo on the verge of being devoured by the monster, the brown-haired guy was extremely pleased. The rampaging monster charged towards Hyun Woo, and it seemed like he would be swallowed whole. But to everyone's surprise, he managed to dodge the attack in the nick of time. After the monster lunged, it suddenly disappeared. Hyun Woo looked at the chains that tightly bound his legs, completely unaware of what they were. Curious, Hyun Woo asked about it, and the brown-haired man explained that it was a magical chain. It turned out that the guy was using the chain to bind Hyun Woo's legs, and he was an assassin from Ares. The assassin mentioned that no matter how strong Hyun Woo's abilities were, he would become useless once bound by the magical chain. At that moment, Hyun Woo examined the magical chain, still naive about its danger. He tried to break free, but it was indeed impossible. Seeing that Hyun Woo didn't grasp the true danger of the magical chain, the assassin emphasized, "You need stronger magic power than me. Someone with a rank magic power." The assassin had reviewed Hyun Woo's power chart and noted that although he was strong, he had no magic power. The assassin asked if Hyun Woo felt terrified, but to his surprise, Hyun Woo's face showed no fear, and he even asked the assassin in return, "Am I in danger?" Right now, hearing his question, the assassin clenched his teeth, displaying a furious expression. The assassin realized that the more he conversed with Hyun Woo, the more frustrated he became. Finally, unable to hold back any longer, he wanted to kill Hyun Woo quickly. Suddenly, the assassin produced a sword from somewhere and rushed towards him, intending to strike him down. However, much to his astonishment, as he swung the sword, Hyun Woo not only managed to move his hand, but also effortlessly caught the assassin's sword. At this point, the assassin resorted to using the venom explosion skill. After a shocking explosion, he believed that Hyun Woo would have no chance of escaping, thinking he was as good as dead. But unexpectedly, as the dissipating smoke cleared, Hyun Woo stood there unscathed, as if nothing had happened. There wasn't a single small wound on his body. The assassin couldn't believe that his attack had no effect. After hesitating for a moment, the assassin decided to unleash his full power to attack Hyun Woo. He not only used the magical chain, but also wielded his sword. As the assassin lunged forward, he didn't expect that Hyun Woo would strike back with a single punch, directly aiming for the assassin's face. The punch landed with great force, causing the assassin to fall backward, crashing into a large and painful tree. The assassin now appeared terrified, trembling uncontrollably. He couldn't comprehend why Hyun Woo could still move despite being bound by the magical chain. After Hyun Woo freed himself from the chain, he immediately launched a kick, toppling the large tree the assassin was still lying on. Then, he spoke a few words to the assassin before lifting the tree. Regardless of how terrified the assassin was, Hyun Woo threw both the assassin and the tree into a river teeming with crocodiles. Under the river, the crocodiles, who were swimming and frolicking, suddenly received an unexpected gift falling from the sky. Unexpectedly, Hyun Woo's gift was too big, causing the crocodile to die instantly. The tree where Shin Chun Gang was stuck had already sunk in the swamp, and Shin Chun Gang was nowhere to be found. Hyun Woo was about to turn around and leave when a virtual screen appeared, displaying a message. "Congratulations, you have proved yourself. Your status window will be updated. Lowest tier will be made available. At the management office in the basement 5th the floor of the Aries Guild. News of Shin Chun Gang's death was received. Even the manager couldn't believe that the assassin, with venomous chain and explosion stealth and 7 skills, was defeated by Hyun Woo. His mood appeared really down and disappointed. Meanwhile, as Hyun Woo was resting at home, the strange information window reappeared. In addition to the displayed information, it stated that he was a temporary guardian and received a new skill called Information Authority. Finally, there was an invitation to become a temporary guardian in the system, along with a visible countdown of the remaining hours. As Hyun Woo was unsure about the information displayed on the system board, Shi Hyun returned. Without hesitation, Hyun Woo immediately used the Information Authority skill on Shi Hyun. To his surprise, it allowed him to check Shi Hyun's information, but due to his lowest tier of Information Authority, he could only see the name and couldn't access further details. Hyun Woo found the skill to be somewhat useless. However, he realized that even if it was a trash skill, it demonstrated that he definitely experienced a change. He pondered that if he got the invitation to the system or something, he would be able to find out about various information, maybe even information about the tower. Lost in thought, Hyun Woo sat until his phone's clock displayed exactly 12 o'clock, and suddenly, a space materialized in front of him. Sitting across from him was a beautiful young girl. She introduced herself as his assistant, and her name was Eve. The pretty girl with 2 different eye colors, light purple on the left and bright green on the right, greeted Hyun Woo again, calling him Guardian. Excited to hear that Eve would support him to the best of her abilities. Hyun Woo was eager to know why he had been trapped in the tower for 12 years. But after a while, Eve remained silent, simply observing him. Unable to wait any longer, Hyun Woo was taken aback when Eve stared blankly at him, seemingly unaware, and asked him what he wanted to explain. Angrily rising to his feet, he questioned if she was playing games with him. His anger had scared her, and she obediently promised to answer his questions. At first, Hyun Woo thought that Eve would provide answers to whatever he asked. However, to his surprise, after asking many questions, he received only one response: information that could not be disclosed. Finally, unable to contain his frustration, Hyun Woo punched Eve in the head. When he was raging with anger, she finally revealed why she had not answered his questions. It turned out that it was because of his lowest tier of information authority. Upon learning the reason, Hyun Woo grew even more infuriated, which frightened Eve. Fearful that he would hit her again, she hurriedly disclosed one more thing, but it seemed that after he heard it, his anger only intensified. Feeling helpless, Hyun Woo asked one final question about the job of guardian. He thought Eve would refuse to answer, but to his surprise, she responded immediately. It turned out that once he officially became an official guardian, he would have access to everything he wanted to know, even things he didn't want to know. But how to become an official guardian, she said, would take 5 days. After 5 days, in the area where he lived, the crevasse would open, and in the deepest area of this place, there would be the key that could help him to raise the tier of his information authority. If he obtained it, he would become a real guardian. After the conversation with Eve, his skills were upgraded. The next day, while having a meal with his 3 friends, Hyun Woo asked, "What's crevasse?" Shi Hyun simply told him that crevasse was a huge disaster. Ares wanted to beat up Han Woo and tried everything to get rid of him. A high-ranking manager from Ares spent a lot of money to find someone stronger than Shin Chun Yang to eliminate Hyun Woo. After dealing with Hyun Woo, they planned to focus on the Tyrant Guild because they believed the Chinese players would destroy their members. At the restaurant where Hyun Woo was sitting, his friend with brown hair showed off a 2 billion won ring and said that he found it in the labyrinth. It turned out that the items found in the labyrinth and dungeons were different. Shai-Hoon explained that in the dungeons, they could get special resources or loots like spirit stones after monsters died in the dungeons. In the treasure trove of the labyrinth, there were artifacts that had good functions from the start. The ancient ring Hyun Woo had was enchanted, making it much more powerful than regular items. Excited, Hyun Woo tried to use his new skill to examine the ring, but it turned out to be useless. He decided that once he finished his current tasks, he would explore the labyrinth. Hyun Woo decided to have a big meal and ordered many dishes. While waiting for the food, he asked about the crevasse phenomenon. It turned out that crevasse was when the ground suddenly cracked, and in the midst of that, countless monsters would come up from below. According to the girl with green hair, this strange thing had happened in China and Germany before, and it was also called Hellgate. Eve hadn't told Hyun Woo about this, so he thought it was a normal thing. Suddenly, Hyun Woo asked the other 3 people, if a crevasse opened in Korea, what do you think will happen? They stayed quiet, all looking serious. After a while, Shai Hyun said, while we can stop it, even if it's the lowest C-rank crevasse, that area will become completely barren. The other 2 thought that if crevasse happened, their guild and a few other Korean guilds would help out, but Ara's guild would only drag their feet. Talking about Ares made Han Woo angry, and he vented his frustration while eating. After that, he told the other 3 to rest. Curious about his strange words, they asked for an explanation, but he didn't say anything, assuring them they would find out soon. In a dark and cold building, a guy wearing black clothes and a hood walked in and said, "The 9th floor has awakened." In front of him was a strange round table, and a man sitting alone at the table looked just as strange. Probably because he had a mask on and only his glowing eyes could be seen. They seemed to be talking about something related to Hyun Woo, although it wasn't clear what exactly. As Eve had mentioned before, there was a crevasse incident. News reports said that the crevasse incident at Gimpo International Airport was urgent, resulting in the evacuation of residents in the vicinity. The airport had been locked down on an emergency basis. Hunters from the association were continuously joining in, but countless monsters were currently climbing out of the crevasse. The situation was getting worse. Even as a hunter, the young guy in a green outfit with a sword couldn't help but feel scared. Seeing the frightened young guy, the other man nearby tried to boost his morale, but it didn't seem to work. Luckily, He arrived just in time and used his bind skill to stop the monster from killing the young guy. While the monster was caught in countless threads, he swiftly swung his sword and cut off its head. But as soon as he defeated one monster, many others came after him, wanting to take him down. With things looking grim, waiting for help wasn't an option if anyone wanted to survive. Suddenly, a monster resembling a red skeletal figure with a wooden stick approached them. It had 8 spider-like legs on its back and stood over 5 meters tall. It was an A+ ranked monster. The hunters all looked scared when they saw it. He told everyone to move away, and he faced the monster alone. The monster charged straight at him. When it attacked with the wooden stick, he quickly raised his shield to protect himself. But the monster's strength was too much, and he couldn't withstand its powerful blow. He was sent flying backward. The monster didn't stop. It kept coming at him. He thought this might be the end for him. But surprisingly, the young guy he had saved earlier came to his rescue and took the hit for him. The young guy was hit by the monster and thrown into a nearby car, losing consciousness. The monster still didn't give up. It wanted to keep attacking. Just as the monster was about to strike the young guy with the wooden stick, suddenly, someone appeared and defeated the A+ ranked monster with a single kick. The red skeletal structure broke into pieces. The hero was wearing sportswear, sandals, and didn't have any weapons, but they had just saved their lives. It was Hyun Woo. Gimpo International Airport now resembled a living hell. Hyun Woo was gazing at the A+ ranked monster he had just defeated when the system suddenly appeared, notifying him of a mission to be completed at Gimpo Airport. Prove yourself by acquiring the key located deep within the crevasse. As Hyun Woo was observing the mission details, the onlookers who witnessed him defeating the skeleton monster with a single strike were still speculating, unsure if he was the first person to enter the tower. No one paid attention to the monster still attacking from behind, if not for Hyun's reminder. Originally, he had intended to let others handle them, but seeing the overwhelming number of monsters, he decided to lend a hand. When Hyun Woo picked up the skeleton's weapon, the majority of the hunters were astonished. Not only could he wield the weapon of an A+ ranked monster, but he also effortlessly swung it around with finesse. Gathering his strength, he threw the wooden staff towards the horde of monsters. Several monsters were hit, and each one that received a blow screamed in agony. But just as the young man shouted triumphantly, proclaiming their savior had arrived, he swiftly fled. Before charging into the airport, Hyun Woo advised them to take care of the rest themselves. Although the remaining monsters were of lower ranks, their sheer numbers were impossible to count, and the remaining hunters were exhausted. If they were to be defeated here, it would be unlikely for anyone outside to survive. The young man continued to encourage everyone to endure and wait for reinforcements. True to his words, reinforcements arrived shortly after. With a single sword strike, the newcomer swiftly killed the monster. The young man enthusiastically cheered for Hyun. Not only did the captain of the SEAL Guild arrive, but also the other members of the team. After witnessing a surge of electric power subdue the controlled monster, a green-haired girl appeared alongside her teammates. The young man, filled with admiration, shouted excitedly, Lee Seo-yeon. That's the Orang Guild's Lee Seo-yeon. Following that, the captain of the Goguryeo Guild, Han Seok-won, and his team members also arrived. Seeing the 3 teams arrive simultaneously, the young man was overjoyed. Seok-won had a powerful ability called Accelerate. When he shouted, his shield was surrounded by a strong force that pushed away the scary monsters in front of him. He bravely charged straight towards them. At the same time, Hyun faced a group of monsters running towards him. As they got closer, he attacked them with his fiery sword, which was like fire. Meanwhile, Seo-yeon used her lighting skill. She threw electric balls from her hands that exploded into bright lightning, making the monsters scream in pain. In the airport, Hyun Woo just defeated the last monster. He then thought about how to go down into the deep crack in front of him. He noticed that the monsters were coming up from a path. He looked in the other direction and saw a car hanging on the edge of a cliff. He took off the car doors and jumped down into the deep crack. Below, a small monster saw something strange falling from above and quickly told the big monster standing next to it. The monsters below didn't know what it was and just stood there, looking. When the dust cleared, they saw a young man laughing strangely. The monsters looked shocked and scared when they saw him. Hyun Woo was a little crazy. He excitedly told the monsters to come and attack him quickly. But right after saying that, he was the one who attacked them first. He used the car doors and rushed towards them, surprising them before they could react. He hit one of the monsters and sent it falling back into the deep crack. If it knew, it would probably be happy to be used to measure the depth of the crack. Hyun Woo continued to fight the remaining monster and then jumped into the crack. He landed on the bodies of countless monsters he had purposely thrown down earlier. He had reached the bottom of the crack unexpectedly. As soon as he landed, someone welcomed him. In front of him was a muscular monster, probably a regular gym goer. This monster not only had 3 horns on its head, but also had horns on every muscle and fingertip. The most notable thing on the monster's side was a key. Hyun Woo didn't hesitate and immediately attacked the monster, hoping to defeat it with just one blow. But unexpectedly, this monster was extremely agile and instantly dodged one of his strikes. He quickly kicked it. However, even he was hit when his attack landed. Hyun Woo doubted whether the monster in front of him knew how to counterattack. The monster quickly ran towards Hyun Woo and tried to hit him on the head, but he quickly moved his head to avoid the attack. Right after that, Hyun Woo took control and launched a strong kick from below, hitting the monster hard. After getting punched twice by Hyun Woo, the monster fell backwards. The monster growled and stood up again, pointing at Hyun Woo and saying something, but he couldn't understand. Hyun Woo continued his attack. He planned to hit the monster again, but surprisingly, the monster managed to catch his strike. Undeterred, Hyun Woo attempted another punch. However, the monster caught both of his hands tightly. Then, with a powerful kick, the monster sent Hyun Woo flying far away, making him fall into a pile of monster bodies. He didn't expect the monster to be so strong. The monster saw Hyun Woo getting up, pointed at him, and said something that he couldn't comprehend. Suddenly, Hyun Woo stood up and got into a defensive position with his right hand. While Kim Hyun Woo was still stuck in the tutorial tower, he remembered the idea of gaining enlightenment while training in martial arts from martial art novels. He thought that it might help him escape. He started practicing martial arts. Although he considered martial arts to be something that one could see in movies, animations, or web novels, he still had hope. He hoped that by becoming a martial arts master, he could achieve something extraordinary. At first, he imitated the silly moves he had seen before. But when he tried those techniques against the monsters, he realized that they were not effective at all. In a fit of anger, he recalled a mocking comment he had heard. In that moment, Hyun Woo unleashed a strike that completely knocked off the monster's head. The power he had accumulated during his time in the tower finally showed results after many attempts. Even though he didn't want to resort to it, given the situation, he had no choice but to use that technique once again. The monster with 3 horns on its head started attacking him, throwing a punch. Without hesitation, Hyun Woo immediately countered with a strike of his own. He let the monster know that the technique he was about to use was called the Supreme Ruler and landed a powerful blow to its head. After defeating the monster with his martial arts move called Supreme Ruler, Hyun Woo felt lucky that no one was around. He really didn't want anyone to know about his dark past. As soon as he picked up the key, the system screen appeared, notifying him that he had completed the mission and inviting him to become an official guardian. As the remaining time beside the system counted down, he would be summoned and invited. Just as he was about to call Eve to ask some questions, he noticed a strange object floating above his head. Hyun Woo had no clue what it could be. Unknown to Hyun Woo, the Aries Guild was using a fly cam to monitor him. After witnessing the intense fight between Hyun Woo and the monster in the deep crevasse, most of the onlookers were amazed. Suddenly, someone spoke up and asked if Hyun Woo was at the A rank. The short-haired girl became sweaty and revealed to everyone that the power analysis chart she had shown wasn't their analysis, but rather the Hunter Association's official calculation. Upon hearing this, the brand manager of Aries became extremely angry and questioned why Hyun Woo was only considered an A rank after watching the recent video footage. According to him, Hyun Woo didn't possess any magical powers, weapons, or support equipment, yet he displayed such overwhelming strength. He was genuinely worried and wanted to eliminate Hyun Woo right away. The next day, at the Korean Hunters Association branch, Hyun Woo attended the Hunters Association Award ceremony for recognition of merit. Everyone else was dressed in formal suits and elegant shoes, but Hyun Woo remained in his usual attire, wearing a sports outfit and legendary flip-flops. Below the stands, there were journalists, reporters, and even the streamer Gay Mun, who was live streaming the event. His appearance, holding his phone and shedding tears, while reading comments praising Hyun Woo, was quite funny. He checked how many viewers he had and suddenly read 2 comments praising Hyun Woo. Food lover, the attitude of an A-rank rookie. Battle King. At that moment, high up in the stands, the Minister of Defense approached to present the medal to Hyun Woo. Looking at Hyun Woo's outfit, the minister suddenly remarked, "Did I mention that we needed to get Hunter Kim Hyun Woo some clothes?" Hyun Woo glanced at his clothes and smiled, saying, "Don't worry about it." Without waiting for the elderly Minister of Defense to hand him the medal, Hyun Woo simply took it. Ignoring how angry the minister might be, Hyun Woo held the bouquet and medal, then leaped off the stands. No matter how much the minister shouted, he didn't turn back. In the outskirts of China's capital, Beijing, at the Tyrant Guild's Supreme Ruler Castle, after watching the video of Hyun Woo fighting the monster in the deep crevasse, the girl with an impressive skull tattoo on her back ordered a thorough investigation into him, making sure no details were overlooked. She seemed very interested in Hyun Woo. Suddenly, a young man entered and made an announcement that he had taken control of the Weon Guild. According to the man in the white robe, their guild had clashed with the Aries Guild, and one of their executives had been kidnapped by Aries. The owner of the Tyrant Guild had grand ambitions, not only to conquer all the guilds, but also to seize control of all the dungeons. Meanwhile, news broadcasts were buzzing about Hyun Woo, highlighting his emergence from the tower after 12 years and his legendary escape. The latest news from Hunters debated whether Kim Hyun Woo was charismatic or arrogant. Seo Yeon felt utterly helpless after reading the reports. Hyun Woo couldn't understand why he had become famous, but Seo Yeon and Shi Hyun didn't seem pleased about it. The two of them began discussing the medal ceremony at Hunters, with Seo Yeon mentioning that the reporters wouldn't let him off easily and would continue to write articles about him walking away after receiving the reward. Shi Hyun criticized his choice of outfit for the event. No matter what they said, Hyun Woo brushed it off, saying, "I'm going to live doing what I want to do." Both Shi Hyun and Seo Yeon felt powerless in the situation. Suddenly, Hyun Woo mentioned that he had something to attend to and wanted to go out for a while, but when they asked for details, he simply said he had an appointment. As soon as Hyun Woo stepped outside, he received a notification from the system, inviting him to become an official guardian of the system. After a brief wait, Hyun Woo found himself transported to a different space. Eve greeted him with utmost respect. She still sat at the table just as before. To his surprise, even after dealing with the monster in the crevasse, his information authority was just at the low tier. This angered Hyun Woo greatly. Seeing his furious expression, Eve became alarmed and quickly tried to calm him down, advising him to regain his composure. Hearing Eve's explanation, he angrily exclaimed, Which bastard taught you stuff like that? Eve, sweating profusely, promptly replied, "It's the system." Witnessing Hyun Woo's increasing anger, Eve swiftly changed the subject, discussing his role as a guardian. It turned out that as a guardian, he was tasked with stopping the climbers. Climbers referred to those who ascended the tower. According to Eve, the tower consisted of 12 levels, including the Earth. As a guardian, Hyun Woo now held the responsibility of protecting this place, specifically the 9th level out of the total 12. Hyun Woo's task at the moment was to prevent the climbers from reaching the 9th level where he was stationed. He tried to do so many things just to find out who had placed him in the tutorial tower, but why did it seem to get harder every day? Hyun Woo grew increasingly angry, not understanding why the more he did, the more tasks were thrown his way. Suddenly, Eve provided him with important information. If he failed to stop the climbers from reaching the tower, not only would the 9th level be destroyed, but his entire living area would be devastated. This infuriated Hyun Woo, and he slammed the table asking, "Are you saying that it's something I have to do anyway, so shut up and do it?" Eve reminded herself to stay calm and, in a sweet tone, explained that the system had chosen him as a guardian for his sake. She also mentioned the rewards as an incentive for him to take on the climbers, with his achievements increasing as he completed his tasks. But what Hyun Woo truly wanted was to uncover information about the person who had created the tutorial tower and trapped him inside. According to Eve, he could only find out by reaching at least a high-tier information authority. To achieve that, he needed to capture the climbers. However, these climbers were no ordinary adversaries. They were also ranked. Hyun Woo had to defeat around 5 high-ranking climbers to gain the high-tier information authority. Hyun Woo asked about the level of the monster he had defeated at Gimpo International Airport, only to find out it was a low-rank cone. When Hyun Woo returned, the other 3 had already left. He looked at the system board, which indicated that he would be notified when the climbers ascended the tower. Upon reflection, he found the story of saving the Earth to be utterly absurd and increasingly complicated. But what truly mattered to him was finding out who had locked him in the tutorial tower without considering his opinion. Suddenly, the phone rang, and it was Seo Yeon calling. She urged him to watch the news. Hyun Woo immediately turned on the TV and saw a news channel reporting that he had killed a member of the Aries Guild. According to the news anchor, public opinion was currently in chaos.